All eyes are on Saskatoon, where Prime Minister Mark Carney is meeting with Canada's provincial and territorial leaders. It's the first time Saskatchewan has hosted a First Ministers meeting in 40 years. Focus on nation building and breaking down provincial trade barriers. And that's where we find Vassy Kapelos, who joins us now from Saskatoon, host of Power Play on the CTV News channel. Vassy, thanks for joining us.
Hey, Lee, good to be with you.
So you were front and center for this First Ministers meeting. What were you able to learn? There was a lot of talk, but how much action was done at this meeting?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think there's sort of two different ways to look at it. Certainly from a symbolic perspective, the premiers, I think, very much wanted to be here. They wanted to be together, and they wanted to be seen with the Prime Minister. All of them, for the last number of months, have been talking about the crisis we face vis-a-vis the United States and the threats from Donald Trump. So you can't just talk about a crisis and say you're going to do something. You actually have to get together and look like you are. And I think on that count, that is what they accomplished today. But your question about substance is also very relevant. Like, beyond just saying you're going to do things, what are you going to do? What we did learn today is that the federal government plans to introduce legislation that in the aggregate would take away federal barriers to internal trade and also introduce a new regulatory process to fast-track projects that they deem are in the national interest. And that's where the big question mark lies going ahead. A, will that legislation pass? Don't forget that it's a minority government, so they'll need support from the opposition. But B, what kind of projects is that legislation, if it passes, going to approve? And how many of them, for example, will be relevant to the province of, let's say, Saskatchewan and Premier Moe? All of that stuff has yet to be determined.
Yeah, that is the big question. Everyone united on the front of making sure you get those barriers out of the way. But when it comes to talks of what projects, I can imagine the talking points were extremely pointed for a lot of the provinces and the territorial leaders trying to get their side as one of the projects to be done.
Yeah, very much. And we learned from the federal government today and the Prime Minister there's going to be like 5 criteria that they'll judge those projects by. But I think the big, if we're kind of dancing around the elephant in the room, that elephant is pipelines, right? And we know that, and any sort of conventional energy export capacity, any additional capacity. We know that the premiers of Saskatchewan and Alberta went in, and even the Premier of Ontario is saying, like, you got to get rid of C-69, you got to get rid of the tanker ban, you got to provide the conditions so that if there is a company that wants to invest and build another pipeline, that they actually feel that they can. I think that on that count, we again don't have a ton of specifics or promises from the federal government to repeal those things that I just mentioned, but there is a promise to expedite the process if they do believe a pipeline is in the national interest. And the Prime Minister left the door open to that possibility today. If they do believe that to be the case, there is this process they're now talking about to expedite it getting approved.
It seems right now the relationship, especially with Saskatchewan and Premier Scott Moe and Mark Carney, is off to a decent start. We'll see if that continues, Vassy. Vassy, thank you very much for joining us today.
My pleasure. Good to see you, Lee.